to Asterisk Live. This is Julie Webb. I'm in the marketing department, and today we are very thrilled to have with us several folks from the Asterisk community. We have Rusty Newton, who is our Asterisk Community Support Manager. We're also joined by Pete Engler. He's our Digium Channel Account Manager, who also has the great responsibility of working with the Asterisk products and the community. And then this lovely face, David Duffett, who is our worldwide community director. So some of you might be familiar with David. He's been around quite a while. So
hey, I'm just thinking it's a good job that this isn't a game of Monopoly, Julie, because you've got the three Asterisk guys here. You could build a hotel on us.
That's right. We just need one more.
Okay.
So I'm going to kick it over to Pete. I know Pete has worked with David and created several questions for Rusty so that the community can really get to know him. Here you go, Pete.
Great. Thank you, Julie. And thank you, Rusty, for taking the time out today to talk a little bit about your role as the Asterisk Community Support Manager. If you could just tell us a little bit about your role.
Okay, so as the Asterisk Community Support Manager, I think in figuring out what I do, it's useful to note the word support in the Community Support Manager. So it's more of an Asterisk Community Support Manager rather than a Community Manager. It's not a traditional community management position from what people would think of for, say, LinkedIn and Facebook and social media and those sorts of things. I actually work in the software engineering department. I report to Matt Jordan, and I work with his team. Of course, I work with all the different departments within Digium, but it is a software engineering role. So my main charge is to support the Asterisk user and development community and basically try to help them accomplish whatever it is they need to do on a day-to-day basis. So it's really about the kind of the micro in the trenches, day-to-day, what's going on, what kind of processes and procedures and functions are happening on a daily basis. So if you look at it from a practical aspect, like what do I actually do on a day-to-day basis, could probably boil that down into maybe 3 or 4 different items. The first of which is bug marshaling. So that is managing the process of the flow of bugs through the Asterisk bug tracker, not just bugs, but patches and improvements to Asterisk as well. And then a second thing would be a curator for Asterisk documentation, primarily Asterisk user documentation, but also some development documentation. And then I'm a product owner within software development for the Asterisk project, so I sort of look to improve Asterisk user experience. And then maybe a fourth item would be the kind of the work I do communicating with Asterisk users on IRC and the mailing list, chat rooms and forums in different places. And then of course I'm always, there's always fires to put out, so you end up with a lot of little things that happen here and there that are unexpected. But a lot of communication, a lot of managing a variety of different processes.
Right, well that sounds like a really important role for the Asterisk community. So have you always been in that role here at Digium, or have you had other positions? Kind of give us maybe a little history of what you've done prior to that role.
So I guess I'll start out, just for context, I'll start out talking about before Digium and just go through all the way into Digium. Before Digium, when I was maybe, I don't know, 15 or 16 years old, I actually started working with my father, who, my father actually retired with Bell South, about 40 years of service with Bell South. And to tangent even further, my grandfather retired about 40 years with Bell Companies as well. So I'm a third-generation telephone guy. When I was very young, I started working in telecommunications, helping my dad out. I did everything for probably 5 years or so. I did everything from pulling cable to programming legacy, systems and Panasonic and Toshiba and Nortel and Mitel and just about everything you can name under the sun. I did, small business computer networking, networking Windows machines together and hooking up printers and pulling cable through dark attics and dungeons. Just a little bit of everything. And then in 2006, I hired on at Digium. I hired into tech support. And in tech support, I did a number of different roles, from kind of frontline tech support to a more specialized troubleshooting of escalated issues and things. worked with pretty much all of Digium's products that we had. And then I did that for 4 years in tech support, and then 2 years, let's see, I moved into sales, and then I was in sales for roughly 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. And I did a number of different roles in sales. When I left sales, I was an account executive, where I helped build solutions for customers. I had a lot of fun doing that. But at some point, the community support manager position opened up in software engineering, and that's where I jumped over into software engineering as the community support manager. So I think I covered everything there in gruesome detail.
It's a pretty good heritage, Rusty, with all that telecoms in there. I'm thinking you've probably got twisted pairs instead of veins.
I think that's right. The one thing about it, though, is it's ended up I've been more of a telecom generalist. You know, I've never stayed doing one thing long enough to be a specialist in any one of these things. So I know a little bit about everything, just enough to get me in trouble all day, every day.
That's pretty good, Rusty. One of the things you mentioned was your duties as a bug marshal. Can you tell us just a little bit more about what that means on a day-to-day basis?
Sure, David. So bug marshaling for me has been really about, I guess the primary aspect of it, is identifying whether an issue that's reported is really a bug or not. Sometimes that's obvious. People report, they say they provide a patch, and they say this is a new improvement for Asterisk. It's not a bug in that case. When people report a bug, you'd think it'd be, okay, it's obvious. Well, they're reporting a bug, but probably half the time people report a bug, it's not a bug. It requires a bit of tech support sometimes to really figure out whether it's a bug or not. So one thing I'm doing during bug triage is essentially asking the reporter to provide certain data and asking them to provide all the information that's needed such that a developer can then take on the bug after I move it through the process. So it's all about, is this a bug or not? Is there enough data to really determine if this is a bug? Do you have steps where you can actually tell us how to reproduce the issue? Sometimes maybe we even know it's a bug, but we can't reproduce it. And if a developer is able to create a patch for the issue, they may not be able to actually test that patch if we can't reproduce the issue. So there's a variety of factors that go into it. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I was just going to ask if there's an enthusiastic community member watching this and they want to submit a bug report. What advice could you offer to them to make sure they don't fall into a trap of submitting something that's not really a bug?
Read the manual. We have really good documentation now, and as we'll probably talk about later, it's one of the other things I work on. We have extensive documentation detailing exactly what you need for a bug report, what format the file should be in, how you should post them, how you should respond to us, so on and so forth. So there's great documentation. First step is read the documentation. Maybe second step is be responsive. We have a lot of people that file an issue, and then we respond and we ask them for information. They never respond again. So of course, eventually the issues get closed out. We can't investigate it without working with the community member to determine what the issue is. So yeah, read the manual. Give us lots of information. Tell us how to reproduce it, and we're usually pretty good from there.
What is your role with the documentation, Rusty? And where would somebody go if they are a voracious reader and want to get more information on what you're doing and how to report or submit bugs and patches and things to Asterisk?
So the official Asterisk documentation is wiki.asterisk.org. That is the source of all things Asterisk documentation. We've been probably in the past few years in a transition period. We've had a lot of documentation that was distributed with the Asterisk source in the form of sample configuration files, and that documentation was very extensive and elaborate, but is kind of scattered about. So we've been taking a lot of that and trying to get it on the wiki so we can update it in an easier fashion and keep it updated and organized. So the wiki is definitely the place to go for it. I'm sort of a curator of Asterisk documentation, so I'm the one doing the organization and filing issues when we see documentation that's missing. I'm also a creator of documentation, so for some of the things that I can work on, the parts that I understand, I can create the documentation. That's another thing I do on a day-to-day basis. Community members contribute documentation, and I try to get that documentation into the right place. Sometimes documentation requires source code changes because there's online command documentation. If you're at the Asterisk command prompt, there's documentation for applications and functions, and it just goes on and on. So I'm sort of a curator is the best way to describe my role with the Asterisk documentation.
And I should just jump in at this point because Rusty's much too nice a guy to tell us what an excellent job he's done there, but our documentation is really excellent. If you go to wiki.asterisk.org, it really is comprehensive and covers a lot of stuff, and it's not just references to what is within Asterisk, but there's a lot of very, very helpful how-tos and guides to get people going, and it's a very underused resource. We really, really should point more people to wiki.asterisk.org. Now, just changing tack a little bit, Rusty, I hear that you hang out in various chat rooms and mailing lists, and that some of them have got something to do with Asterisk. So what are you doing there?
Yes, there are a number of places to talk about Asterisk. The IRC chat rooms, the mailing list are just a couple places. Of course, you could go talk about Asterisk on Reddit or LinkedIn or Spiceworks, or it's about 1,000,001 different forums and places. I primarily, you'll see me in the IRC chat rooms on freenode.net, and the mailing lists like the Asterisk dev list, the Asterisk users list. My role is really just to help out where I can. We're fortunate to have a lot of really awesome community members that on a daily basis are going on there and helping out people, almost playing the role of tech support. I mean, there are people that spend hours of their day in the chat rooms, helping other users, and that's awesome. So I try to support them when I can. I try to go in there and, when possible, link people to the official Asterisk documentation, and really just help out. I mean, I'm just trying to, I see a question languishing in there. If somebody hasn't answered it, then I want to go in there and answer it when I can. But, limited time and resources, so I'm not always around. We just do what we can. The developers here at Digium are also really great about contributing, so they're very active places.
Right.
Well, do you have any funny war stories from working with Asterisk that you can tell us?
I have a lot of funny war stories that I can't remember. I can remember one. There's one I always go back to in tech support, which kind of taught me a lesson. So it's a profound war story, if you will. In tech support, I had a customer that had a Digium analog card, and I believe he had like all FXS modules, and he had analog phones that he wanted to get dial tone to those analog phones. And so his basic issue report was, he called into support and said, we don't, the card's not working. I can't get these phones to work. The phones don't function. There's no dial tone on the phones. And so we went through all the standard troubleshooting procedures and then some. We just could not figure it out. Could not get dial tone to the phones. By the end of the troubleshooting case, he had swapped out phones, a dozen times. We had sent him a brand new card. Still, the phones wouldn't work. Swapped them out. It was just ridiculous. I mean, there's no way we're going to figure this out. So I'm working on other issues and cases, doing my thing, and then weeks later, the guy calls me and he says, "I fixed it. I figured it out." I was like, "Okay, no, there's no way you figured this out. We did everything possible. Those phones are just broken, or there's something wrong in the environment. There's a ghost in the machine. Who knows?" Well, it turns out that he had a pile of phones in the closet, which is where he was getting his phones from. He was swapping those phones out to try them out. It was the pile of bad phones. It was a pile of defective phones. His coworkers had not told him that the pile of phones in the closet were all defective, bad phones. So he needed to find the good phone pile was what he needed to do. So I kind of learned from that you have to open your mind when troubleshooting to all possibilities. And I also learned that in tech support role or even in a community role, the community member or your customer is a lot of times your eyes and ears when you're working on the problem. So you have to kind of have some faith in the customer or the user and let them be your eyes and ears, and you have to find clever ways to get them to check things like that.
Yeah, that's right. In tech support, I know it's a difficulty sometimes because people feel they're kind of being asked very, very basic questions by the tech support folk when they're trying to troubleshoot. And when you hear a story like that, you begin to understand why. Don't you?
Exactly.
Cover some of those bases. So, Rusty, you spend really all your working life in and around Asterisk, and I wanted to ask you about what you do outside of work and what kind of hobbies you have. But before you get to that question, tell me, what is your favourite thing about Asterisk?
Favorite thing about Asterisk? That's a hard one. Asterisk is like an old friend. I mean, I've been here for 8, going on 9 years, so it's kind of like, what's your favorite thing about your best friend, sort of question. I guess it sounds cliche, but it's the flexibility of Asterisk. It's that, even 8 years into working with Asterisk, there are so many parts of Asterisk that I don't understand and have never used and have never touched. It's like there's so many parts of Asterisk that I'm very familiar with and I use, but even in doing bug triage day to day, I just run into things. I'm like, I didn't know Asterisk could do this. This is crazy. Like, I didn't know Asterisk had this specific module, this specific thing, or when did they even add this? Oh, they added it 3 years ago, and I still didn't know about it. It really is the name of the Asterisk being a wild card is really great because it really shows it can just do just about anything to do with telecommunications that you wanted to do.
It is amazing. Its flexibility is really only equaled by its power, and its power is really only equaled by its flexibility. So, getting to that outside of work question, Rusty, what kind of things do you get up to when you're not doing Asterisk stuff?
When I'm not doing Asterisk, I like to have about 1,000,001 hobbies that I never spend enough time on each one of those things. So just like I am at work, I'm spread all over the place. That's the way I am outside of work too. Lately, I've been into martial arts and health and fitness, different activities. For martial arts, I'm doing Japanese swordsmanship right now. So I take lessons at a dojo that's not too far away from Digium here, where I learn basically how to use a Japanese katana to cut targets and practice different moves that samurai would have used, 800 years ago.
I've seen some pictures on that on Facebook. There's some big old swords.
Yeah, they're very, very sharp. One of the reasons I got into the swordsmanship is because I wanted something that would help me learn to focus my mind. I'm very ADD. I'm all over the place, like I think a lot of us geeks are. And working with a 3-foot-long razor make you very careful. Of course, you practice a lot with wooden swords and things at first, but it's something.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. You didn't get into that sword handling while you were still in tech support, did you, Rusty?
No, that could have been dangerous. Probably not the best time to get into working with swords.
And I also see from Facebook that you like doing a bit of cooking as well.
I do. I love to cook. I've even considered doing like an at-home chef thing on the weekends. I love cooking. I have no foundational or training in cooking, but I cook pretty much every night, and I love cooking exotic cuisine, just about anything I can. I love food. I love to eat. That's why I have to work out so much so I can eat more.
Okay. One other thing I just wanted to cover is that you and I work reasonably closely together, and I wanted to give people a little insight. I wonder whether you could tell folk watching the kind of thing we do on a weekly or bi-weekly basis when we meet up and discuss community matters.
Oh, the community meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing we like to do within Digium, of course, is make sure all the departments are getting together and understand what each department is doing, and we have a kind of an intercompany meeting where we meet about the community twice a week, or not twice a week, every 2 weeks. Bi-weekly, I'm always confused by bi-week. But yeah, every other week we meet and we talk about community matters to make sure we know what's going on, in the forums and the mailing list, and know what big events are going. Since David, works at more of a kind of a macro community role, and I'm sort of a micro community role. And then, of course, all the developers also interact with the community. It's important that we all get together and understand what's happening so we can benefit the community with what we're doing.
Well, thank you, Rusty. This has really been fun. We've both been here since 2006. I had no idea all of the things and places you have worked within the company. You've been around.
I'm all over the place. Yeah, I've worked on all 3 floors of the building, and I've worked in 3 different departments so far. So.
That's fantastic. I love that. Well, gentlemen, anyone have any other questions? If not, we'll close up Asterisk Live, and thanks, Rusty, for being with us.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Rusty.
And Pete and David, I look forward to having you guys on the next Asterisk Live.
We're looking forward to it.
When we're going to be interviewing another community contributor, and that will be Joshua Culp, or some of you guys may know him as File. So.
And they don't let Josh handle any swords.
No, which is a good thing. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.